The gleam of silver cutlery, the gentle clink of crystal glasses, and the aroma of expensive food filled the air of the luxurious restaurant in Palm Beach, Florida. But none of it mattered. The entire world for that boy was reduced to the lavish table before him and the man who looked at him with disgust. The man, impeccably dressed in a grey suit that likely cost more than the house the boy lived in, wrinkled his nose. His eyes, cold as ice, scanned the boy's torn and dirty shirt, his bare feet on the polished wooden floor, and the small, thin hand extended, trembling, not asking for money, but for something much more basic, a little of the leftover food. "How disgusting," the man muttered, his voice low but sharp as a knife. He pushed his plate away as if the boy's mere presence could contaminate his meal. The boy, his face marked by sadness and hunger, did not back down. His large, dark eyes fixed on the man's, and with a voice that was barely a whisper, he pleaded, "Sir, please, just give me the leftovers to eat." The small hand remained outstretched, a chasm of distance between desperate hunger and indifferent abundance. Who was this man to judge a child's hunger? And what would fate do next, in that hall where wealth and misery stared each other down? Now, before we find out what fate had in store for them, I ask you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the unfolding of moving stories like this one. That man was Victor Sterling, a name that echoed in the corridors of power and finance. He didn't build his empire with kindness. He started from nothing, with an ambition that burned brighter than any obstacle. Every deal closed, every million added to his bank account, was a personal victory, proof that he was better, stronger and smarter than the others. He lived in a mansion in Palm Beach, a palace overlooking the sea, surrounded by perfectly manicured gardens and high walls that separated him from the common world. His cars, a collection of luxury European models, gleamed in the garage. His suits were custom-made in London. His watches were Swiss works of art worth fortunes. Victor believed that wealth was a sign of merit. If he had everything, it was because he deserved it. And if that boy had nothing, it was because somehow he also deserved his fate. Poverty, to him, was synonymous with weakness, with a lack of effort. Seeing that boy in his favorite restaurant, a place he considered his sanctuary, was a personal offense. It was as if the filth of the outside world had invaded his sacred space. He called the manager with an impatient gesture, ready to have the child thrown out without the slightest ceremony. To Victor, the boy was just a stain on the perfect scenery of his life, an annoyance that needed to be removed quickly so he could return to his rare steak and expensive wine. He didn't see a hungry child. He saw a failure, a flaw in the system he was so proud to have conquered. Life had taught him to be tough, to never look back, and to never show weakness. And compassion, in his world, was the greatest weakness of all. He had no idea that the past, which he had tried so hard to bury under layers of money and success, was standing right there in front of him, with pleading eyes and a hunger that went far beyond food. As the manager hurried over, his face pale with concern, the boy did not look away from Victor. There was something more than hunger in those eyes. There was a strange familiarity, a search for recognition that the millionaire, in his arrogance, could not perceive. The boy had not chosen that man at random. He had watched him from a distance for days, gathering every bit of courage he had to approach. He had heard the stories about the powerful Victor Sterling, the man who came from the same poor neighborhood as him and conquered the world, but he didn't know about the coldness, the contempt he would encounter. He had hoped, perhaps, for a drop of compassion, a memory of a past that he didn't know the man did everything to forget. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Some customers looked at the boy with pity, others with disapproval, but most looked away, uncomfortable with the scene that shattered the illusion of perfection in their lives. The tension at the table was palpable. On one side, a man who had everything and offered nothing. On the other, a boy who had nothing and asked for so little. The manager arrived at the table, stammering apologies to Victor. "Mr. Sterling, I am so sorry. I don't know how he got in. I'll remove him immediately." The manager reached out to touch the boy's shoulder, But before he could, the boy spoke again, and his words were not a request, but a statement that made time stand still. The boy's voice, though quiet, cut through the restaurant's murmur like thunder. "I don't want the leftovers," he said, his voice gaining a surprising firmness. He lowered the hand that had been begging for food. His eyes were no longer pleading, but filled with a deep, accusing pain. He looked directly at Victor, who was already annoyed by the delay in resolving the situation. "I just wanted to see up close the man my mother talked so much about before she died." Victor froze, his fork halfway to his mouth. The boy's words were like stones thrown into the calm surface of his memory's lake, creating ripples that took him back in time to a place and a person he had locked away in the depths of his mind. He remembered Sarah, his first love, the woman he left behind in his blind pursuit of wealth and power. She had told him she was pregnant, but he, young and ambitious, saw it as an anchor that would tie him to the poverty he hated so much. He gave her some money, an amount that seemed like a lot at the time, and left, promising to return, a promise he never intended to keep. He changed cities, changed his name, and built a new life, erasing every trace of his humble past. The world didn't know Victor Sterling, but the man he was before, a poor young man with dreams too big for his pockets. The boy continued, and each word was a blow to the millionaire's hardened heart. "My mother said my father was a good man, that he just needed some time to succeed in life. She kept this photo." The boy pulled a small, crumpled and faded portrait from his pocket. It was a photo of a much younger Victor, smiling next to a beautiful woman. It was Sarah. Victor's world collapsed. The expensive suit, the luxury restaurant, the millions in the bank, none of it mattered anymore. That boy, that stain on his perfect day, was not a stranger. He was his son. The son he had abandoned. The son who carried the blood of Sarah, the woman he had loved and betrayed. The disgust he had felt moments before turned into a horror that consumed him whole. That thin, dirty face was a mirror of his own failure, not as a businessman, but as a human being. The shock on Victor's face was visible to everyone. The man who controlled empires was paralyzed, staring at the face of the son he never knew. The resemblance was undeniable, the same determined eyes, the same shape of the chin. The revelation, "I am your son," echoed in his mind, breaking down the barriers he had built around his heart for decades. He looked at the untouched plates of food, at the wealth that surrounded him, and it all seemed rotten, worthless. He had humiliated his own flesh, his own blood, for a piece of bread. The pain and shame hit him with the force of a hurricane. He was not a winner. He was a coward. A man who had fled from his greatest responsibility, and now fate was placing it back in his lap, in the cruelest way possible. He looked at his son, and for the first time in many years, Victor Sterling felt tears burn in his eyes. What would you do in Victor's place? Do you believe that money can buy happiness or erase the mistakes of the past? Leave your opinion in the comments, as your view on this story is very important. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to receive more stories that make us reflect on life. If you've made it this far, I'm sure you'll like the story I've set aside especially for you. It's appearing on your screen now. Just click on this video to continue being moved with us. See you there. All the best.